The Galactic Academy of Unified Species was the biggest space station anyone had ever built. It floated in the empty darkness between three star systems, far away from any planet or moon. The station was home to thousands of students from hundreds of different alien races. They came here to learn, to make friends, and to build a peaceful future for the galaxy. In Lecture Hall 7C, the morning class had just started. Professor stood at the front of the room, her long, thin body swaying gently as she spoke. She was a species known for their see-through skin and their love of teaching. She had been a professor for over 200 years, and she thought she had seen everything. She was wrong. The classroom was filled with students of all shapes and sizes. There were with their 4 arms and clicking mouths. There were who looked like big blobs of blue jelly. They were like the professor, tall and thin and beautiful in their strange way. And in the back row, sitting alone at a desk meant for 3, there was a human. Her name was... She was not very tall. She was not very strong-looking. She had black hair that she kept in a simple ponytail, and she wore the same gray uniform that all students wore. She looked completely ordinary, boring even. But every alien in that room was afraid of her. Did not notice their fear, or maybe she did notice and just did not care. She was too busy reading her textbook, a glowing holographic book that floated above her desk. She had an exam coming up in 2 days, and she needed to study. The student closest to her kept sliding away, inch by inch, until it was pressed against the far wall. The behind her had moved to different seats at the start of the semester. Even Professor tried not to look at her for too long. It had been like this since arrived 3 months ago. On her first day, the professor had tried to make everyone feel welcome. She had asked each student to share something about their home planet. When it was turn, she had talked about Earth. She had talked about the oceans and the mountains and the forests. She had talked about the animals and the weather and the food. That was when everything went wrong. Had mentioned, very casually, that humans like to eat something called chili peppers. She had explained that these peppers contained a chemical that caused burning pain in the mouth. She had said that humans ate them for fun. 3 students had to go to the medical center. They could not believe what they had heard. A species that ate poison for pleasure. It was too horrible to imagine. After that, had tried to be more careful. She stopped talking about Earth. She stopped talking about humans. She just studied quietly and tried not to scare anyone. It did not help. The other students had done their research. They had looked up information about Earth in the galactic database. What they found had given them nightmares. Earth was classified as a Category 12. This was the highest danger rating possible. The planet had extreme temperature changes, violent weather, and a gravity that would crush most species. The air was filled with a gas called oxygen, which was highly toxic to many life forms. The water was full of salt and strange creatures with too many teeth. And the humans, they had evolved there. They had survived there. They had become the dominant species on a planet that was actively trying to kill them every single day. The database had pictures of Earth animals, lions, sharks, crocodiles, snakes, spiders. Each one was more terrifying than the last, and humans had not just survived alongside these monsters. They had hunted them, eaten them, turned some of them into pets. One student had found information about something called a dog. It was a domesticated predator that humans kept in their homes. The original animal, called a wolf, was a pack hunter that could run for hours without stopping, chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, and tear flesh from bone with its jaws. Humans had looked at this killing machine and thought, "I want to cuddle with it." The had not slept well for a week. Knew none of this, or rather she knew but did not understand why it mattered. To her, Earth was just home, dogs were just pets, chili peppers were just food. She had grown up with all of it, so it seemed normal. She did not realize that she was the scary one. Professor cleared her throat and began her lecture. Today's topic was communication. She talked about body language, tone of voice, and cultural differences. She explained how a gesture that meant friendship in one culture could mean war in another. Took notes. She was a good student, always paying attention, always asking smart questions. The professor had admitted privately that was one of the best students she had ever taught. If only she was not so terrifying. The lecture continued for an hour. Students asked questions. The professor gave answers. Everything was normal and peaceful and calm. Then the station shook. It was a small shake at first, like a gentle vibration. Most students did not notice, but then it happened again, stronger this time. The lights flickered. Alarms began to sound in the distance. Professor stopped talking. Her see-through skin turned a pale shade of blue, which meant fear. She looked at the door, then at her students, then at the door again. "Everyone stay calm," she said, but her voice was not calm at all. Looked up from her textbook. She tilted her head slightly, listening to something. Her expression did not change. She did not look scared. The other students were beginning to panic. They were shaking so hard they were losing their shape. The eye were clicking their mouths rapidly, a sign of extreme stress. Even the, usually so composed, were trembling. Went back to reading. A few minutes passed. The shaking stopped. The alarms continued, but they seemed far away. Some students started to relax. Then they heard the footsteps. Heavy footsteps, very heavy. The kind of footsteps that cracked floor tiles and made walls shake. They were getting closer. Professor moved toward the door, perhaps to lock it, perhaps to see what was happening. She never made it. The door exploded inward. Standing in the doorway was the largest alien had ever seen. It was at least 8 feet tall, covered in dark green scales, with 4 massive arms ending in claws like knives. It had a thick tail, 6 yellow eyes, and teeth that looked like they could bite through metal. Behind it stood a dozen more creatures just like it, all carrying weapons that glowed with deadly energy. The large alien stepped into the room. Its eyes scanned the students, passing over each one until they found what they were looking for. The human. It smiled. It was not a nice smile. "I am General and of the Dominion," it said, its voice deep and terrible. "I have conquered 17 worlds. I have killed millions, and I have come here today for one reason." It pointed one clawed finger directly at you. The classroom was silent. Every student held their breath. Professor looked like she might faint. Turned a page in her textbook. She did not even look up. General N had lived for 300 years. In that time he had seen many things. He had watched stars die. He had walked on burning planets. He had fought in wars that killed billions. He had become the most feared warrior in his entire species. But he had never seen anyone ignore him. The human girl sat at her desk, reading her glowing book, as if he was not there. As if he had not just smashed through the door with enough force to kill most creatures. As if his soldiers were not standing behind him with weapons ready to fire. She turned another page and felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Confusion. His 6 yellow eyes blinked slowly as he tried to understand what was happening. "Did you hear me, creature?" he growled. His voice was like thunder, deep and powerful. "I said I am here for you." "I heard you," said. She still did not look up. "I am busy." The silence in the classroom was complete. No one breathed. No one moved. Even and soldiers looked at each other with uncertainty. Professor made a small squeaking sound and fell to the floor. She had fainted. No one helped her. Everyone was too scared to move. And took a step forward. His clawed foot cracked the floor tile beneath it. He was not used to being ignored. He was not used to being treated like he did not matter. On his home world, creatures bowed when he walked past. Enemies surrendered just by hearing his name. This tiny human girl was reading a book. "Do you know who I am?" and asked. His voice was quieter now, but somehow more dangerous. "Do you know what I have done?" You said you conquered 17 worlds, highlighted something in her textbook. You said you killed millions. You seem very proud of it. I am the greatest warrior they have ever produced. That is nice. She made a note in the margin of her book. I have an exam in 2 days. One of N's soldiers made a sound. It might have been a laugh quickly cut off, and did not turn around. He did not need to. He would deal with that soldier later. Right now, he had a human to deal with. I challenge you to ritual combat, he said, speaking each word slowly and clearly. This is a formal challenge under the laws of the Dominion. You cannot refuse. I am not part of the Dominion, said. Your laws do not apply to me. The challenge has been issued. You must respond. Sighed. It was a small sigh, the kind a person makes when they are interrupted while doing something important. She closed her textbook slowly and looked up at the massive alien standing in the middle of the classroom. And finally saw her eyes. They were dark brown, almost black. They were calm. They were completely without fear. He had seen many eyes in his 300 years. The eyes of warriors about to die. The eyes of leaders about to surrender. The eyes of creatures who knew they had no hope. He had never seen eyes like these. These eyes looked at him like he was a minor problem, an annoyance, something to be dealt with quickly so she could get back to her studies. Why? Asked. The question caught him off guard. Why what? Why do you want to fight me? She leaned back in her chair. You do not know me. I have never done anything to you. Why come all this way just to challenge a student? And straightened up. This was a question he could answer. This was something he understood. Your species has humiliated the Dominion, he said. 3 years ago, my people tried to expand into human space. We sent our finest soldiers to conquer your colony worlds. We expected easy victory. He paused. The memory still burned in his mind. We lost, he said. Not just one battle, many battles. Your kind fought in ways we did not expect. They did not surrender when they should have. They did not die when they were supposed to. They kept fighting long after any reasonable creature would have given up. Nodded slowly. I know I was there. N's eyes widened. You were there. I was on one of those colony worlds when your soldiers attacked. Her voice was still calm, still quiet. I was 16 years old. I watched your ships burn our cities. I saw your soldiers kill my neighbors. I helped carry the wounded to safety while buildings fell around us. She stood up from her desk. She was so small, so fragile-looking, and could have crushed her with one hand. But somehow, standing there in her simple gray uniform, she did not look fragile at all. Your soldiers lost because they did not understand us, said. They thought we would break. They thought we would run. They did not know that humans have been fighting for survival since before your species learned to make fire. That is why I am here, and took another step forward, to prove that they are still the greatest warriors in the galaxy, to show that our defeat was a mistake, an accident, a trick. It was not a trick, shook her head. It was not an accident. Your soldiers lost because they were not prepared for what we are. And what are you? Smiled. It was not a warm smile. We are survivors, she said. We come from a planet that has tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. We evolved alongside predators that could eat us in one bite. We survived ice ages that covered half our world in frozen death. We survived diseases that killed more of us than all your wars combined. She took a step toward him and did not move. He told himself it was because he was not afraid. He was not sure if he believed it. Your soldiers were strong, continued. They were fast. They were well trained, but they expected us to behave like normal prey. They expected us to follow the rules of nature, run or fight, win or die, surrender when the battle is lost. Another step. We do not follow those rules. We never have. When we cannot win, we keep fighting anyway. When we are supposed to die, we survive out of pure stubbornness. When everything says we should give up, we find another way. She was close to him now, close enough that he could see the tiny hairs on her arms standing up, close enough to smell her strange alien scent, close enough to kill her with a single blow. He did not move. "So yes, General," said softly, "you can challenge me to combat. You can try to restore your honor, but I will not fight you today. Not because I am afraid of you, not because I do not know how to fight, but because you are not worth failing my exam over." She turned her back on him. In 300 years of war, no one had ever turned their back on General N. It was an insult beyond words. It was a statement that said, "You are not dangerous. You are not worthy of my attention. You are nothing." And felt his rage building inside him like a volcano about to explode. His claws extended to their full length. His muscles tensed. His tail rose behind him, ready to strike. The human walked back to her desk and sat down. She opened her textbook and began to read. And General and Conqueror of 17 Worlds stood frozen in the middle of a classroom, staring at the back of a girl who weighed less than one of his arms. He did not know what to do. For the first time in 300 years, he had no idea what to do. The rage inside him was like fire. It burned through his blood and made his scales turn a darker shade of green. No one had ever treated him like this. No one had ever dismissed him like he was some common soldier. He was a general. He was a conqueror. He was the terror of 17 worlds. And this tiny creature had turned her back on him. His soldiers watched from the doorway, uncertain what to do. They had followed him into 100 battles. They had seen him tear apart enemies twice his size. They had watched him crush rebellions with his bare hands. But they had never seen him hesitate like this. The students in the classroom were pressed against the walls, trying to make themselves as small as possible. They had almost completely melted into puddles of fear. The eye were clicking so fast it sounded like rain on a metal roof. Even Professor, who had woken up from her faint, was crawling slowly toward the emergency exit. Continued reading. "You dare to insult me," and said. His voice was low and dangerous. "You dare to turn your back on the conqueror of stars. Do you want to die, human?" "Not particularly," said without looking up. "But I am not especially worried about it either." "You should be worried," and roared. "I could kill you where you sit. I could tear this entire station apart with my bare hands." "You could try." Something in her voice made him pause. It was not fear. It was not courage. It was something else entirely. Something that sounded almost like boredom. "Let me explain something to you," General said. She closed her book again and turned to face him. "I know you came here expecting a certain kind of reaction. You expected me to scream, to beg, to try to run away. That is what prey does, right? That is what every other species does when they come knocking." She stood up slowly, calmly, like she had all the time in the world. "But I am not prey. Humans are not prey. We have never been prey." And snorted. "You are small. You are weak. You have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. By every measure, you are prey." "By every measure except one," said. "We are still here." She began to walk toward him. Not fast, not slow. Just a normal walk, like she was crossing a room to talk to a friend. "Do you know how many species have tried to kill humans throughout our history? Not alien species. Species on our own planet. Predators that were bigger than us, faster than us, stronger than us in every way. They had claws and fangs and venom and armor. They could see in the dark. They could smell us from miles away. They were perfect killing machines." She stopped a few feet away from him. "We killed them all." And felt a strange sensation in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it as fear. He had not felt fear since he was a child. "Not all at once," continued. "Not in a single battle. We did not defeat them with strength or speed. We defeated them with patience, with persistence, with the simple refusal to give up and die." She looked up at him with those dark, calm eyes. "A human cannot outrun a wolf, but a human can follow a wolf for days, walking slowly, never stopping until the wolf collapses from exhaustion. This is called persistence hunting. We literally walked our prey to death. One of N's soldiers made a choking sound. A human cannot fight a mammoth with bare hands, but humans learn to dig pits and cover them with branches. We learn to make spears and throw them from a distance. We learn to work together in groups, surrounding our prey, driving it toward traps. She smiled that not warm smile again. When nature gave us weak bodies, we built tools. When the weather tried to freeze us, we made fire. When diseases killed millions of us, we learned medicine. When our own planet became too crowded, we built ships and flew to other worlds. Every single obstacle, every single threat, every single thing that tried to kill us, we found a way around it. And wanted to speak. He wanted to say something strong and threatening, but his mouth would not cooperate. Your soldiers invaded our colony worlds 3 years ago, said. They burned our cities, they killed our people. Do you know what happened next? She did not wait for an answer. We did not surrender. We did not run. We adapted. We learned how your soldiers fought and we changed our tactics. We learned about your weapons and we built defenses against them. We studied your biology and found your weaknesses. Her voice was still quiet, still calm, but there was something underneath it now, something hard and cold like steel. Your soldiers were faster than us, so we used traps. Your soldiers were stronger than us, so we used explosives. Your soldiers had better armor than us, so we went for the gaps, the joints, the places where armor did not cover. She took one more step forward. They were very close now. Every human on those colony worlds knew they might die. They knew the odds were against them, and they fought anyway, not because they wanted to die, but because giving up is not in our nature. Surrender is not in our blood. We have spent millions of years learning one simple lesson. She looked directly into his 6 yellow eyes. Keep fighting, no matter what. Keep fighting until you win or you die. And even when you die, make sure you take something with you. Make sure your death means something. Make sure your enemy remembers you. The classroom was absolutely silent. Your soldiers did not expect that, said. They expected quick victories, easy conquests. They did not expect civilians to pick up weapons and fight back. They did not expect children to throw rocks at them. They did not expect wounded humans to keep shooting even as they bled to death. She shook her head slowly. They called it cheating. They called it dishonorable. They could not understand why we would not follow the rules, why we would not accept defeat when defeat was obvious. Her smile faded. But there was no cheating, there were no tricks. There was just us doing what we have always done, surviving, adapting, refusing to die. And finally found his voice. Then why will you not fight me now? If humans are so brave, so fierce, so impossible to defeat, why do you hide behind excuses about exams and studies? Looked at him for a long moment. Because fighting you would accomplish nothing, she said. If I fight you and lose, my people lose nothing except one student. If I fight you and win, your people will be angry and want revenge. Either way, more people die. More families are destroyed. More children watch their homes burn. She walked back to her desk. I came to this academy to learn, to understand other species, to help build something better than war and conquest. That is worth more than your pride, General. That is worth more than your need for revenge. She sat down and opened her textbook. So no, I will not fight you, not today, not tomorrow, not ever, because I have something more important to do. She began to read, and stood in the middle of the classroom, surrounded by silent students and frozen soldiers, and felt something he had never felt before. He felt small. For a long moment, nothing happened, and stood like a statue in the middle of the classroom, his mind struggling to understand what had just occurred. His soldiers watched him with nervous eyes. The students pressed themselves even harder against the walls. Read her textbook. Then the rage returned. It came like a wave, washing away the doubt and confusion and fear, and was a warrior. He had been born to fight. He had spent 300 years perfecting the art of killing. He had not come all this way, risked everything, broken a dozen treaties, just to be dismissed by a child. His muscles tensed, his claws extended to their full length, each one sharp enough to cut through starship armor. His tail rose behind him, ready to strike with enough force to shatter stone. The human had turned her back on him, again. She was sitting at her desk, completely relaxed, completely vulnerable. Her soft human neck was exposed. Her fragile human body had no armor, no scales, no protection of any kind. She was reading a book while a predator stood less than 10 feet away. It was an insult. It was a challenge. It was everything and needed to justify what he was about to do. He launched himself forward, and was fast, much faster than any human could possibly be. His species had evolved on a world with twice Earth's gravity, where only the quickest survived. He could cross the distance between them in less than a second. His claws would tear through her flesh before she even knew he was moving. The students screamed. His soldiers raised their weapons. Professor fainted again. Moved. Later, when the security recordings were studied by military experts across the galaxy, no one could explain exactly what happened. They slowed the video down to individual frames. They analyzed every movement. They ran simulations and calculations and probability assessments. None of it made sense. One frame showed an in mid-leap, all four arms extended, claws aimed its back. The next frame showed him on the floor with his primary arm bent at an impossible angle, his knee on his throat, and her thumb pressed against a spot below his jaw that he did not even know existed. She had not even dropped her book. And tried to move. His body did not respond. Whatever pressure point she was pressing, it had frozen every muscle below his neck. He could breathe. He could blink. He could feel pain shooting through his broken arm like liquid fire, but he could not move. That, said quietly, was a mistake. Her voice was the same as before, calm, quiet, completely without emotion, as if she was commenting on the weather rather than holding down a creature 5 times her size. And tried to speak. The pressure on his throat made it difficult. How, he managed to croak out, "How did you know exactly where to press to disable your nervous system?" Finished for him. "I told you. We studied your biology. We found your weaknesses. Did you think we would forget that knowledge when the war ended?" Behind them, and soldiers raised their weapons. They were well trained. They were loyal. They would die for their general without hesitation. But they did not fire. They did not fire because the doorway was suddenly full of humans. There were 12 of them, students by the look of their uniforms, young, small, unarmed. They should not have been threatening. They should not have made hardened soldiers hesitate. But there was something in their eyes, something that looked exactly like what was in Sci's eyes, that calm, patient certainty, that complete lack of fear, that silent promise that said, "We know exactly how to hurt you, and we will if we have to." The soldiers did not lower their weapons, but they did not fire either. "The thing about humans," said, still pressing down on An's throat, "is that we do not fight alone. We never have. From the very beginning, we have been pack hunters. We work together. We protect each other. We plan ahead." She leaned down until her face was inches from his. "Your ships are surrounded, General." An's eyes widened. "Did you really think Earth would not notice a Dominion general entering neutral space with 3 warships? Did you think we were not watching? Did you think we were not prepared?" She increased the pressure on his throat slightly. His vision began to blur around the edges. "We knew you were coming the moment you left your territory. We tracked every jump, every course correction, every communication between your ships. We knew exactly what you planned to do before you did it." Her voice dropped even lower. "This was a test, General. Not of me. Of you. Of the Dominion. The Galactic Council wanted to know if your people could be trusted to maintain the ceasefire. They wanted to see if your leaders had the wisdom to recognize when they were outmatched. She shook her head slowly. You failed. And felt cold spread through his body. It was not from the pain in his arm. It was not from the pressure on his throat. It was from the realization of what he had done. He had been played. From the very beginning, he had been played. The humans had known he was coming. They had prepared for every possibility. They had placed their own people in position to respond. They had probably written the script he was following before he even left his home world. And he had walked right into it. My species does not want war, said. We never did. War is wasteful. War destroys more than it creates. We have fought enough wars among ourselves to know this truth. She released some of the pressure on his throat, allowing him to breathe more easily. But we are very, very good at it when we have to be. We have had millions of years of practice. We have written books about strategy that are older than your civilization. We have weapons that can destroy planets and diseases that can wipe out species and poisons that can kill with a single drop. Her eyes held his. We choose not to use them. We choose peace. We choose diplomacy. We choose to study and learn and build instead of fight and kill and destroy. She leaned back slightly. That choice is not weakness, General. That choice is the hardest thing we do. Every day, we wake up and choose not to burn the galaxy down. Every day, we remind ourselves that being able to destroy something does not mean we should. She stood up, removing her knee from his throat but keeping her thumb on that pressure point. You can tell your Empress that Earth's position has not changed. The ceasefire holds as long as your people honor it. The door to peaceful relations remains open. Trade, cultural exchange, scientific cooperation, all of this is still possible. She looked down at him with something that might have been pity. But if anyone else comes looking for glory, looking for revenge, looking to prove that they are stronger than the humans, they will find exactly what you found today. She finally released the pressure point. Feeling rushed back into his body in a wave of pain and tingling nerves. A species that has been preparing for this moment since before your ancestors crawled out of their oceans. She picked up her textbook from where it had fallen during their brief struggle. Now, if you will excuse me, I have studying to do. She walked back to her desk and sat down. The human students at the doorway parted to let and soldiers help their general to his feet. No one tried to stop them. No one needed to. The message had been delivered. 3 months passed. The galaxy had changed in those 3 months, not in any big, dramatic way. There were no wars, no invasions, no declarations of hostility between great powers, but something had shifted, something important. The story of what happened in Lecture Hall 7C had spread to every corner of civilized space. It was told in military academies and diplomatic schools. It was discussed in government meetings and scientific conferences. It was whispered in bars and trading posts and every place where beings gathered to share news. The human girl who did not look up. The general who had conquered 17 worlds. And what happened when he demanded combat. Different species took different lessons from the story. Some saw it as proof that humans were dangerous predators who should be avoided at all costs. Others saw it as evidence that humans could be trusted to act with restraint even when provoked. A few saw it as the beginning of a new era, one where the old rules of conquest and dominance no longer applied. The Dominion had withdrawn its forces from 3 disputed sectors. Their Empress had sent formal apologies to the Academy and to Earth's government. She had also, in a move that shocked everyone, requested permission to establish cultural exchange programs with human worlds. Apparently, she wanted to understand how such a small, soft species could be so terrifying while appearing so ordinary. Back at the Academy, life continued as normal. Students attended classes, took exams, made friends, and complained about homework. The had mostly recovered from their collective trauma. The eye had stopped flinching every time they saw a human in the hallway. Even Professor had managed to go a full week without fainting. Had passed her exam, top marks as usual. Now she stood in the great hall of the academy, wearing a formal gown instead of her usual gray uniform, waiting for her name to be called. Today was graduation day. The hall was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Parents and families had traveled from dozens of worlds to watch their children complete their studies. Diplomats and politicians had come to observe the ceremony. News cameras floated through the air, broadcasting to billions of viewers. Did not look at any of them. She was looking at her friends. There was a girl who had been the first to speak to after the incident with General N. They had started studying together, then eating meals together, then staying up late talking about their hopes and dreams. Wanted to become a doctor. She said that watching disable a creature 10 times her size with a single finger had inspired her to learn more about alien biology. There was a young male who had been terrified of it first. He had spent the first 2 months of the semester avoiding her completely. Then one day, she had helped him carry a heavy box of equipment to his laboratory, and he had realized that she was just nice. Now they were research partners, working together on a project about communication. There was even a student who had to be hospitalized on his first day. It had taken a long time for her to stop being afraid, but had been patient. She had never pushed, never demanded friendship, never made feel bad for being scared. Eventually, trust had grown. Now could sit next to without shaking, which was considered a miracle by standards. These were her people now, her pack, her family away from home. And now, Professor announced from the stage, her voice amplified throughout the hall, I am proud to present the Academy's highest honor to our top graduating student. Walked toward the stage. The crowd parted before her as crowds always did, but something was different now. The space they gave her was smaller. The fear in their eyes was less. Some of them even smiled. This student has achieved the highest marks in every subject, Professor continued. She has demonstrated excellence in academics, diplomacy, and relations. She has shown that beings from different worlds can work together, learn together, and become friends despite their differences. Climb the steps to the stage. But more than that, the professor said, her voice growing softer, she has taught us something important. She has shown us that strength is not about violence or conquest. True strength is about choice. The choice to be kind when you could be cruel. The choice to teach when you could dominate. The choice to build bridges when you could build walls. She turned to face directly. On behalf of the Galactic Academy of Unified Species, I present this diploma to our first human graduate. Took the document. It was just a piece of paper, really, a symbol, but it meant everything. Thank you, Professor, she said. Her voice was clear and calm, carrying easily through the silent hall. May I say a few words? Professor nodded, her see-through skin flushing with what might have been pride. Turned to face the crowd. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds looked back at her. Some were still afraid, some were curious, some were hopeful. I came to this academy 3 years ago, she began. I did not know what to expect. I had never met an alien before. I had only read about other species in books and seen them in videos. I did not know if anyone would accept me. She paused, remembering those early days, the loneliness, the isolation, the constant reminder that she was different, dangerous, a creature from a death world. It was hard at first. People were scared of me because of what I am, because of where I come from. They saw the predator before they saw the person. I cannot blame them. I understand. Fear is natural. Fear keeps you alive. Her eyes found in the crowd. There was still shaking slightly, but it was holding itself together. It even managed a small wave. But fear is also a prison. It keeps you safe, but it also keeps you alone. It took me a long time to understand that the only way to overcome fear is patience, kindness, time. You cannot force someone to trust you. You can only show them day after day that you are worthy of that trust. She looked at all the friends she had made. Humans are not the monsters the galaxy thinks we are. Yes, we come from a dangerous world. Yes, we have fought terrible wars. Yes, we have done things that we are not proud of, but we are more than our history. We are more than our biology. We are more than the worst things we have ever done. Her voice grew stronger. We are dreamers, we are builders, we are artists and scientists and poets. We look at the stars and see not enemies to fight but friends to make. We want to learn from you. We want to share what we know. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. She held up her diploma. This piece of paper says that I have completed my studies, that I have learned what this academy has to teach. But the truth is, my education has just begun. There is so much more to learn, so many more worlds to visit, so many more beings to meet. She smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes. I cannot wait to get started. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then, somewhere in the back, someone began to clap. Another joined them. Then another. Soon the entire hall was filled with applause, clicks, hums, and every other sound that different species used to show approval. Stood on that stage, looking out at a galaxy that had once feared her, and felt something warm spread through her chest. Hope. Later that day, after the ceremony was over and the crowds had dispersed, she walked through the Academy's observation deck. The great windows showed the endless stars stretching out in every direction. Her friends walked beside her, was talking about her plans for medical school, was describing his next research project, was actually touching his arm without flinching, a breakthrough that made everyone quietly proud. "What will you do now?" asked. Looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was spinning around its sun. Her family was waiting for her. Her world was continuing on as it always had, fighting and loving and dreaming and surviving. "I do not know," she admitted. "Maybe teach, maybe explore, maybe just wander for a while and see what I find." She turned to her friends with a smile. "But whatever I do, I will remember this, all of this, the lessons I learned, the people I met, the fear we overcame together." She looked back at the stars. "Humans have been looking up at the night sky since before we could speak. We have always wondered what was out there, what we might find, what we might become." Her hand pressed against the cold glass of the window. "Now I know. The galaxy is big and strange and sometimes scary, but it is also full of wonders, full of friends waiting to be made, full of possibilities we have not even imagined yet." She took a deep breath. "And we are finally ready to be part of it." The stars twinkled in the darkness, each one a sun, each one surrounded by worlds, each world full of beings who were slowly learning that the small, soft creatures from the death world were not monsters to be feared. They were neighbors. They were allies. They were friends. And that made all the difference.